Hello and welcome back to the Information Command Center as St. Lucia continues to respond to COVID-19. As usual, on a Sunday evening, we have broad-based panel discussion, and we are looking at the roadmap to recovery where investment and business opportunities are concerned. And I also have to tell you that this is part one of the conversation. St. Lucia continues to chart the way forward with a focus on investment and business opportunities to ensure sustainable socio-economic development. We're going to analyze some of St. Lucia's investment opportunities that's happening around the island, the key role that the manufacturing sector and micro, small and medium enterprises play in the economic recovery. I am Lucia Joseph. I'll be your moderator for this evening, and here for the discussion is Mr. Roderick. He's the Chief Executive Officer, the CEO of Invest St. Lucia. Margeurite, the President of the St. Lucia Manufacturers Association. Sabina Valmont, who's the founding President of the Southern Business Association. And Barbara Innocent Charles, who's the Director of the Small Business Development Center. We know it best as SEDO. Thank you so much and welcome, gentlemen and ladies. And just to start off, to give some background which can contextualize our discussion for this evening, the OECS Commission has created a document called the COVID-19 and Beyond Impact Assessment and Responses. In there, it quotes the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, as saying that there is broad agreement that the global economy will contract sharply due to the abrupt halt to large sections of economic activity and subsequent income losses in the manufacturing and services sectors across the world. When combined with the unfavorable effects of financial markets, consumption, investment confidence, international trade, and commodity prices, the consequences of these disruptions are likely to be immense. Consequently, the volume of world trade and the GDP growth have both plummeted to levels not seen since the global financial crisis. And so here in St. Lucia and the wider Caribbean, we know that the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the ECCB, had forecast the 3% growth for 2020 that has been sharply revised downward to something like 20%. We know we're looking at unemployment rates as high as 50% in some of the countries. International trade is declining. We have a reduction in border and trade tax revenue collection. So all around, there is the doom and gloom for manufacturing, investment, services sector. Definitely we are in an economic crisis like none other. We want to go to Roderick and say good evening to you and ask that for Invest St. Lucia, there had been so much on stream prior to COVID-19. As we are in this phase, what is the sort of feedback that you're getting from the investors who had earlier on indicated an interest in St. Lucia?
Okay, thank you very much, Lisa, and thank you for having me here. In your preamble, you quoted very nicely the doom and gloom forecast for the global economy. I think right now the latest forecast is probably for a global recession. So it is definitely doom and gloom. For us in St. Lucia, one of the first things that we did at Invest St. Lucia when COVID-19 was really here and we saw the impacts around the world, we went to all of our investors that had pipeline projects because we needed to replan, refocus, and re-strategize. So that was the first thing we did. Now, when we went to those investors, the majority of them said that they were still interested in St. Lucia, that the projects were so far along that it would have been difficult to pull back. So now most of those investment pipeline projects were actually in the tourism sector. That was the initial feedback. and we were able to, to work with them. In some cases, a lot of this project would be delayed. However, the interest is still there. Now, that was, say, late March. Now, going forward, we now have to check with those investors again, although everyone indicated, in large, every one of our pipeline projects. Now we have to go back and find out whether their financing is still secure, their strategies for growth within St. Lucia is still a strategy, because COVID-19 has forced us all, including especially investors, to re-strategize and rethink how the world will look in the short, medium, and long term. But generally, the feedback has been quite positive.
So I indicated that 2019 was a pretty good year for investing, Lucia, and a number of projects were further along in the pipeline. Give us an indication as some of what you would have considered to be the star projects for ISL in 2019.
Well, of the star projects, there are quite a few in the pipeline that we have been discussing that is in the public sphere. There are projects in the pipeline that we can talk about, and there are projects that are in the pipeline that since we are still negotiating terms, and so they're not in the, we cannot talk about as yet. But one of the projects, there's a Star Holding project, is still on stream. The Marriott at Point Seraphine, that project is still on stream. There is a hotel project for Shock, that as well is still on stream. And the much delayed Sabina project, that also we expect to see some movement near the end of the year. So the larger of the projects, they are still on stream, although they are a bit delayed. The other project that is on stream and due to really open this week is the ITEL BPO. That project also, we've been working hard. We've had delays because of obviously COVID-19 and social distancing protocols, but they have come back, and we were supposed to hand over that project in April, but that will happen within the next couple of weeks.
Let's say hello to Margeurite Desir, the president for the St. Lucia Manufacturers Association. During COVID, certainly there was a lot of apprehension that the domestic economy would have been able to survive. It seemed that it was suffocating because we had the lockdowns, this idea of the social distancing, of course, and a lot of persons were registering themselves as being unemployed. But there were some new opportunities that presented themselves once we were in the thick of things with COVID. So encapsulate for us, Margeurite, where are we at now with the manufacturers in terms of how they've been coping, going through what those new protocols are, and of course finding themselves adapting to a new business environment?
Okay, thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you, viewers. Well, for us as manufacturers, we know that we have to follow the protocols, and a lot of those protocols, we were already following those protocols as part of our way of doing business in terms of ensuring that we have certain standards based on the different international standards that we have to follow, like ISO 9001, HACCP certification, etc. So a lot of the protocols were already being followed. So what we had to do is to enhance in terms of what we had to do extra to protect our employees. In terms of the employment, there is the saying, there's no employment for life, but you have to be employable for life. So meaning you try to develop your skills, your talent. And what we saw, a lot of young persons, especially who had a lot of hidden skills and talent, they came forward and started creating things. I'm calling the association for advice in terms of how to start up a business. And some of them just started, and the hidden skills just came out, and they got an employment like for life for them. They created their own employment. For our other manufacturers, wherever possible, we had to increase on our manpower to be able to supply the local market. That was a great opportunity for us. We saw a lot of patriotic solutions supporting our products. Our products normally, you would say, is above or world-class standard to some extent, and above the quality of some of the products we import in. So seeing that level of support was very refreshing for us. It enabled us to be able to refocus our resources, to be able to invest more capital into our business, and also both working capital and other capital to ensure that we expand to meet the demand. And as St. Lucians could see, we did meet the demand. In fact, we met it so much that we were able to export. Export St. Lucia, who's the agency supported by government to support local businesses, actually had a big trade mission in February just before COVID, and many manufacturers plus some service providers went on that trade mission, and we saw the opportunities that we got. Up to last week, Tenderoni got orders for a few containers. We saw Toiling sent out their first containers, and they probably have around 4 or 5 more to go. We saw some service sectors also have the demand. So that has been very refreshing and welcoming to local manufacturers.
Let's say hello to Sabina Valmont, who is the founding president for the Southern Business Association. Down in the South, of course, it is an area, most times, for people in the North, we tend not to remember life that's happening in the South and how, too, it is affected much like us in the north of the island. So down South, for the businesses there, what has it been like having to cope with COVID-19?
Lisa, thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to be able to provide the Southern perspective on what is happening as a result of COVID. And you are absolutely correct. The devastation from the COVID-19 pandemic has not left the South untouched. And I think more so because my association represents many small businesses that operate in the southern part of St. Lucia. And in the beginning, it was mostly the concern was, how do we keep ourselves safe? How do we keep our employees safe? And how do we adhere to the protocols that are being put in place by the CMO and her team? So there was absolutely no choice in closing shop and staying home. We are now at the point where people are trying to reopen their businesses. Some people, for them it was as simple as going back to work, cleaning up, putting the social distancing protocols in place, the signs on the floors to be able to do that. But for some of our members, they're still in a position where for various reasons that they have not been able to reopen their businesses. We have people who depended on the airport being opened and flights coming in to be able to make income. And so these people are still at home with no idea what it is they're going to do to be able to take care of their families. So you're absolutely correct. We have been touched, and I think we have been touched in a very big way by the pandemic. So I'm very pleased to be here and to be able to provide that perspective.
Wonderful. And so from the Small Business Association over to Ms. Barbara Innocent Charles, is the director for the Small Business Development Center. As I said, we know it best as SEDU, and an institution that provides guidance to those very micro, small, and medium enterprises that Sabina was talking about. So from SEDU's perspective, what has been the challenge in being able to function as the unit's mandate prescribes?
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's also a pleasure to be here tonight to participate in this discussion, a very timely topic. For us at the Small Business Development Center, which is also known as the Small Enterprise Development Unit, a unit within the Ministry of Commerce, International Trade, Investment, Enterprise Development, and Consumer Affairs. Now, I would like to ask you from what the challenge would be from what point? During COVID?
So you walk us through it during COVID. What has that been like? And now that we're beginning to emerge and see that our economy is looking to reopen, how do you see yourself, or how have you been able to manage and how do you see yourself managing during this time?
Okay, just like Invest St. Lucia, when COVID became a cause for concern for the country, we at the Ministry of Commerce, we immediately sprung into action, recognizing that this would certainly have some sort of adverse effect on businesses, all sectors, all industries, regardless of the size. Okay, so our immediate action was to conduct an impact survey. We started with the essential services and manufacturers of the essential products and so on, to get a feel for, where they were at in that early stage. And we realized they needed, based on the results of the survey done around mid-March, that they were looking at, okay, how can they import necessary inputs and so on like that, what concessions and incentives would have been in place for that. We through the assistance of the OAS, in fact, before I go into our intervention through the Organization of American States, I would also mention that we also prepared at the Small Business Development Center what we call survival tips. We put together a whole list of tips, about 10 major, ideas, and disseminated that information among all our clients and the wider business sector, and to our partner agencies such as the Southern Business Association, SLISBA, etc. Just to reach out to the business to our clients and the micro and small business sector and let them know we're there with them. This is what you can start doing as early as possible, to try to mitigate any negative impact that you might encounter during the period of whilst we go through the COVID. Okay, so we're looking at business continuity tips and so on. Understanding, your who your suppliers are, what are your requirements, understanding your financial situation, your cash flow, your employees, who are your key employees, so that you can plan for any eventuality in terms of how do you protect yourself or continue in the absence of key personnel. All right, who would you train to take over in the absence? So a lot of little tips, and which when we circulated, the response was phenomenal. They really appreciated that. Okay, so the next activity was to liaise with our the Organization of American States. The Organization of American States has been very instrumental in helping the Small Business Development Center streamline its services to improve delivery over the past, let's say, six years. Since about 2012, they've been working with us. All right, so, and they've been working also with other Caribbean islands where they have helped set up the Small Business Development Center. So they put together an impact survey for these specific Caribbean islands, and which we rolled out we had it open for about a month, from late March to mid-April. And the results I understand from OS was that the St. Lucia, responded favorably. We aggressively mobilize our clients and the business sector to participate in this survey, and they were very impressed with how we responded. We had 300 respondents from St. Lucia. And what we discovered from that survey was very enlightening. because about 80% were micro and small enterprises. Out of that, as well, under 5, well, let me see what percentage, about 75% were under 5 years old. In those businesses, 50% services, 21% in the professional, 17% retail. 72% of that, those respondents identified that cash flow would have been a big problem for them in terms of their operations. 46% said they temporarily had to lay off their staff, some of their staff, and another 8% felt, well, we didn't have to lay off our staff, but we really think if this situation continues, and we don't know how long, but we would have to. So it was a very, touching situation, but we were happy to receive that information. We found out only about 10% had an online presence, which meant that when we did the analysis, when we examined it further, that in order for them to make it successfully post-COVID, they needed to develop a digital strategy. So these are some of the things we extracted from that survey in order to help us put together some interventions to help get these businesses back on their feet, and those that remained afloat to help them, pivot even more or build their capacity. All right? So that would involve, based on the report, that they required some more business development services. They would want assistance with preparing grant proposals, strategic and business planning, business plans. Now, these are some of the services that we already provide, providing guidance with the development of business plans.
Do you now have to reshape how you get that done, bearing in mind all of the protocols that we now have to adhere to?
And certainly, as the economy reopened about a month ago, that is what was our major task, sitting down and rethinking how we deliver our services. So we've brought everything now through virtual modality, so our clients know that they can reach us, or the public as well, via email, via phone, and when you become a client of Stado, you are assigned a business development officer. So these clients know they can contact their business development officer for any assistance and guidance that they require. Okay, and then we move them from there. We have also put together, worked with our ministry has worked together with other, like a multi-sectoral multi-sectoral group of business support agencies to work on an economic recovery and resilience plan. So this is almost in its final stage, and the government will be rolling that out within the coming weeks or days, but very soon.
Okay, we're due for a break. When we come back, we'll be continuing the conversation. We'll be looking at where do we stand in terms of the competitiveness amidst all of the challenges of COVID-19. Stay with us here at the studios of GIS NTN. We'll be back in a moment.
As part of government's social stabilization plan to assist persons who have lost their means of earning due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the government of St. Lucia has implemented the Income Support Program, where non-contributors to the NIC shall receive a monthly payment of $500 for the next 3 months. Taxi drivers, jet ski operators, vendors, agro-processors, tour guides, hairdressers, barbers, small bar and restaurant operators, construction workers, and other sole traders who meet the criteria can apply using the Government of St. Lucia's website www.govt.lc. Payments will be made directly via electronic transfer.
But who knocking on my door at this hour? Mopio?
Yes, ma.
But what time you leave the house?
You was sleeping on the chair, so I didn't want to disturb you. So I go by the big Chief box juice there. I just take him for a walk and ting. Open there.
In all that virus that's spreading all over the place, you go on beach? But to me, your friends tell you to stay at your home.
Yeah, but I go by myself. I kept the distance really social.
But you go in the shop. I see you have a bag in your hand.
Yeah, ma. I buy a packet of Bricks biscuit. Open there for me,
You're not coming in my house.
And welcome back, and we do apologize there for that technical glitch. Before we went to break, we are going to look at the sort of competitiveness of St. Lucia, where we at, because right now the entire world emerging from COVID-19 and reopening their economies, and certainly there is that mad rush to being able to become buoyant all over again. Roderick, I'm coming to you in terms of, I know that Invest St. Lucia is constantly out there promoting St. Lucia and looking for those investment opportunities. If it was competitive before, how do you see it now?
Well, Lisa, I think you have touched upon the major issue that we'll be facing in this period post-COVID, with the contraction forecast for foreign direct investment of up to 40% for the year 2020. It means that all countries and cities, the world over, will be going after the much needed foreign direct investment.
Do you believe that pool has shrunk now?
Especially since that pool has shrunk, because you see, foreign direct investment is really a catalyst for economic growth. Now, with the stagnation in the global economy, if you are able to attract foreign direct investment, then you can jumpstart your economy. So it will be a vicious world out there. You would expect to see a lot of volatility in the market. We'll expect to see our competitors in whatever sector be willing to give incentives of the type that we have probably not seen before. Okay, and so it's going to be pretty difficult. The other thing is the ways of attracting investment we would have to change. It's going to be very vicious, but it's going to be a lot online as well. So we are trying to gauge what the new world order would be as it comes to promoting and attracting foreign direct investment and developing a strategy that would see us being successful. But now in this period, we know it is difficult. However, St. Lucia has some advantages in terms of we are well known globally, primarily as a tourism destination. So we, as the investment promotion agency, we ride that wave for the recognition of the country. So we do have some advantages, but it's going to be very difficult. So what that means for us is those pipeline projects that we have already, those committed investors, those committed funds, aftercare, the way we treat those investors and so on, becomes even more important. The business climate, the ease of doing business in the country takes on an even a greater importance, because they can go to another destination and get everything available to them.
Are you considering perhaps looking at the sort of strategy that we've been using at Invest St. Lucia to attract those? Do we need now to rethink what those incentive packages may be in order to stay above the competition? Or is it too early for that?
Well, at this point, we are looking at everything. And we already, our incentive packages, are quite attractive. I think our focus should be on ease of doing business and looking at other sectors where, even if we do not have a competitive advantage in those sectors at the moment, we need to build competitive advantage in sectors, in addition to what we already have in tourism.
Right. So some of the investment opportunities that we are looking for 2020, we are not by any means in a sort of doldrum where that is concerned, because you indicated earlier that yes, we do have things in the pipeline, but that was spillover from 2019.
Right.
But for 2020, do we have any full commitments for this year?
Well, those projects that I mentioned at the beginning of the show, they are commitments. What we found, though, is that in COVID-19, there have been other opportunities. Say the BPO sector. The BPO sector has proven to be quite resilient during this period. It has actually grown. Companies such as Ojo Labs, ITEL BPO, KM Squared, they have all reported increased business. So there's a growth path. We're on a growth path in the BPO sector. So that is a good thing, because it's really technology reliant. It provides a good quality job to St. Lucians. So there is good news, but there's not enough good news.
But at least that's a sector we can look towards.
Yes, that
and
is
as
a
we
sector.
build more experience and capacity,
That's right.
we believe that we will be a contender on the stage where that sector is concerned pretty soon.
Definitely, we are growing by leaps and bounds. In fact, we have a new commitment for an increased capacity in ITEL BPO. As I said earlier, we plan to hand over the facility during this week, and they have committed to opening another facility within 6 months if we are able to provide it. So that is a deal signed. So it is a difficult situation. It is difficult to plan with the uncertainty. The competition is tremendous, but there are ways, we are seeing some light.
Then you can maneuver those rough waters.
Yes.
Don't tell us what those secrets are. Sabina, coming across to you, because a lot of what happens from Invest St. Lucia, investment, certainly for the South, that's very, very important. So for the Southern Business Association, its members, what have you seen in terms of movement from what has already taken place? We know that we had the DSH with the horse race track. That brought a lot of traction to the South. I believe there was a lot of sort of economic activity happening down there pre-COVID along those lines. Can you give us a glimpse into what that has been like? That period, of course, where we had December 13, and perhaps a little before, leading to December, that sort of economic activity that was generated through the DSH.
Lisa, thank you once again. What I must tell you, Lisa, is that those of us who are from the South, we understand how brutal the economic situation has been in the south of the island for a very, very long time. And anytime we hear about a project or about some kind of development taking place, it begins to take us to, that happy place that we begin to, think ahead and plan ahead for what our community is going to look like as a result of that development. And I must tell you that, we in the media, we hear, a lot of different perspectives as far as what, the reception of the South is as far as development goes. But from a business perspective, what we are hearing on the ground from business people is that we are tired of waiting, and we think that we have waited long enough. We have been called all kinds of fancy names, the new frontier, We all remember all of those names. And we're now at the point where we want those projects to happen. We are waiting for them to happen. We want to see improved economic climate in the south of the island. That is what we are looking for. We invest the same kind of money as the rest of St. Lucia. We want to begin seeing the same kind of returns. And we do not think that isolating ourselves as a community is going to work to our advantage. We understand that the world is now a global space, and isolation does nothing for us as a community. All it will do is to keep us at a disadvantage. And so as far as the projects go, I think there was a lot of excitement in December when the races were happening. You saw people going all out to buy their fancy dresses and their hats, and and it just gave us a sense of what life could be like when you have that kind of development happening in a space. And so we're excited about it from a business perspective, and we can't wait for it to continue and for it to get to where it needs to get to, especially with the situation that COVID has thrown us into. For a lot of small businesses, like Barbara said, the issue is cash flow. Because whereas big companies may have access to, to the bank, to financing from the banks to be able to continue, for small businesses, we depend solely on our daily cash flow, on the money that comes into our business on a daily basis. And so we know that for us to begin moving past the devastation, we will have to depend on those projects and on the development that is coming for the South.
And if you don't see those projects in a hurry, how do you see the business community in the South faring?
The anxiety, Lisa, that has been, it has been a way of life for us, not just because of COVID, from maybe as far back as 20 years ago. This is something that we have battled with as businesses in the South. And so I cannot even begin to imagine, what it will look like if those projects don't happen, because with what COVID has done, it has further compounded what the economic situation has been for us in the South. So I don't even want to think about, what it will be if the projects don't happen.
Right. Margaret, let's go across to you. And for the manufacturing sector, we spoke about the new opportunities there, but certainly COVID has exposed the sort of vulnerabilities within the sector. We look at the sort of your external sources, reliance on the external sources for inputs and raw materials, innovation, the increased need for innovation, and also for flexibility as well, being able to, as we indicated earlier, that you're producing one product, but the time demands that you move into something else.
Yes, yeah.
So being able to have that flexibility to adapt quite easily. For the manufacturers, how do you see yourself being able to continue in this new vein, the new wave that COVID has forced the manufacturers to operate in?
Okay, thank you, Lisa. So the global economy saw its lowest growth in 2019. That was 2.9%. And luckily for a country like St. Lucia, we saw inflation moving from 2.6 to 2.5%, which is very good for us. There were trade tensions between China, the US, and you have the uncertainty with the UK moving away from, Europe and so on. So for us, we try to be very optimistic in that with all the trade barriers that the US has sanctioned on China, it is also an opportunity for us in St. Lucia as manufacturers and as business owners and as young people to invest in manufacturing. There was a long time ago, you remember, we used to have all these Bell Fashion factory in Dennery, and a lot of the international things that were being done and manufactured right here in St. Lucia. The government has already made a commitment through the plans to support local businesses that they will give us what is required, whether it be warehouse spacing, whether it be concession, the similar opportunities that are there for foreign investors to come in, it is also there for locals to get. And that is very important, and we need to remember that. But we need to have that entrepreneurial spirit. We need to be able to decide that we're going to sell our way through the crisis and not just sit back and wait until the government do everything for us. We need to do something for ourselves to be able to sell ourselves through the crisis and then win towards the end. In terms of competition, what will differentiate us is the way we push our product. I will give you some examples. Some of our manufacturers, not all of us had the luxury of having to produce a lot more because we did not have the essential, not all of us produce essential services. So for those manufacturers who produce order goods and services, what we did, we tried, as soon as the markets started opening, we started changing our sales strategy. Not just sit back and wait for customers to come and buy. Go out there and sell to customers. And these things can create more growth opportunity for your business so you can expand and invest in more and different opportunities for manufacturing. And I urge all solutions to be creative, be innovative, find ways we can start to manufacture gloves, all sorts of medication. We do it right here in Barbados, which is part of the Caribbean. So there's nothing that solutions should not be able to do if we don't make up, if we decide that we want to do it. And that's what I urge. And we have the support from Invest St. Lucia, and the government has promised that we get the backing, not just promised by words, but by the action, because we are already seeing some of the stabilization benefits and plans to us. So the support is there.
You know, coming back to Roderick, as Margaret just mentioned, the sort of local investment, because oftentimes when we speak about investment, we gloss over that we do have local investment. For Invest St. Lucia at this time, I know there was an indication from you that there would have been great focus perhaps this year on collaboration with local businesses, looking at potential investors from the diaspora, and working to generate repeat business and encourage the expansion of local projects by existing investors. It seems now more than ever, COVID is really pushing Invest St. Lucia in that direction. How is that plan being funneled out?
Okay, thank you, Lisa. It seems you took some notes at my presentation at the beginning of the year.
Absolutely.
Well, since then, obviously, COVID happened, so a lot of these things have not really panned out as we had planned. However, the important point to remember is that the facilities and experience of Invest St. Lucia is there for any investor, be it a local investor, a regional or international investors. And so what is happening, because of the thinking that Invest St. Lucia is only for foreign investors, we do not see enough local business, but our services are available. So our plan for this year was really to support local investments by bringing the awareness of the services available, and also partnering with other agencies such as SBDC, formerly SEDO, Export St. Lucia, and private sector organizations, including Manufacturers Association and Chamber of Commerce. And to that end, although we are not where we had planned to be by at this time, we have been doing so. One of the other things that we have been project that we've undertaken is a business incubator project. Now that project, initially from the Invest St. Lucia standpoint, focused mainly on a facility, a warehouse facility that would allow a number of small business incubators to actually be built and supported. However, with COVID-19, what Invest St. Lucia has done in our re-strategizing is not focus on the actual physical building, because that would mean expenditure which at the moment is in short supply. So our focus going forward with the incubator project, incubator and accelerator project, is really a virtual incubator. And as of the next 2 weeks, we will be taking that initiative, off the ground.
Okay. So, Sabina, what would the businesses of the South need? Because let's just establish that certainly in the South, perhaps the environment there is less vibrant than what you would find in the north of the island. And that's not to create any disparities or anything, but that can be an established fact. So, are there special needs of the South, of the Southern businesses have, that you would require the government, investor, St. Lucia to be able, and even the small business unit to be able to meet for you?
Okay, so Lisa, what has happened over the past few weeks is that Barbara mentioned the committee that had been working together to put this economic recovery plan in place. And we have been sharing from an association perspective what some of the challenges are for our members. And what we are finding is that there is a lot of need as far as financing will go, because for a lot of members, business has ground to a halt. There is no money coming into the business. And so for some of them, the concern is whether I will even be around post-COVID. So that is one of the challenges. Another big need right now in the MSME space is the ability to pivot your business so that you have an online presence. And I was fortunate to take part in a recent meeting with the OAS where they were discussing this platform that is now available to MSMEs where your business can move online if you don't have that capacity. Because what we saw during COVID was that businesses who had the capability of operating in the online space were able to continue, especially if they were essential. But for those of them who did not have that capability, everything ground to a halt. So that is one, I would say, one of the biggest needs in the MSME space right now, that we need to be able to get onto the online platforms. We would need support because some people would not have the financing to be able to do that, and that's where the OAS project comes in. That is one of the things I think is the biggest need right now. For some other small businesses, you have the issue of looking into your business and trying to figure out whether what it is you were doing pre-COVID is even worth continuing post-COVID. And so there is a lot of planning that needs to be done as far as pivoting to be able to meet the needs, the present needs of the market post-COVID. So these are some of the challenges that we're having. And so these are some of the things that we will be looking to agencies like Invest St. Lucia and the SBDC in order to support our members and in order to provide that level of accommodation moving forward.
But it's a tall order though, Barbara, because you indicated that the survey showed that you had something like 10%, or even less than 10% of your clients who are able to have this online presence. So from your perspective, let's look at why is that the case? Have you been able to determine why is that the case? Do you think the sort of digital divide that's causing this, or is it that perhaps the clients do not have the sort of capacity, the knowledge capacity to be able to carry the business online?
Actually, Lisa, you've answered it all.
Also, these are the reasons, completely.
It's a combination,
all right.
yes. You would appreciate also that sometimes we're just averse to new technology, trying new things. So probably some may have procrastinated about it, had some kind of fear. But, you know, COVID has, as you mentioned earlier, COVID has exposed so much. Okay, and as Sabina mentioned, we have the OS who has offered this digitization plan, and it is already in practice. It is already been used in some southern Latin American countries. And the only Caribbean island I know so far who's on board is Jamaica from last year. So it would allow us, well, our MSMEs, a free website to market their products, and what it would require on our end also, because for our businesses, we don't want to just be able to showcase our products. We want to go to the next level where we can have transactions taking place. So we have our e-commerce legislation that we just need to have some final probably sign off on and get that part settled. So we have that access, that platform. We also have St. Lucians, a local expertise that are building their own platforms to help and will give our businesses that opportunity to showcase their products as well. And beyond that, if you permit me, Lisa, I wanted to point out that the Ministry of Commerce, because Margaret mentioned that the manufacturers, we need to showcase, to promote those products that are made. We have a lot of skilled people in St. Lucia, business persons, young ones, etc. So what our ministry is doing now, we have the Buy Local campaign. It has been around for a number of years, and we had it on our work program to roll out in 2020, 2021. But with COVID now, we have, as with everything else, we've had to revisit, re-strategize. We've engaged a number of partners from various sectors: tourism, agriculture, exports, St. Lucia Manufacturers Association, and so forth, and to really look at this program, this campaign. And we are ready this month actually to rebrand. It will no longer be a Buy Local campaign, but what it will be, we all have to wait. The public, you have to wait to find out. Yes, but it's going to be an exciting new campaign, and it's get towards, getting all our having all our businesses the equal opportunity to for both products and services to be displayed, to be purchased, etc., and help our businesses as well get to certain standards. We need to have a certain standard at the national level if we want at the export level for them to be, purchased and so on, or appreciated. So a number of, that's one of the areas we'll be taking care of this month. And we also have a calendar of activities in line with that campaign. So St. Lucia, you are going to feel that fever. You are going to be very, wowed from later this month onward. All right. I wanted to say, in terms of the situation, the investment, the concerns with investments in the South, that in 2018, the International Trade Center did a survey of MSMEs in St. Lucia, and discovered, well, about 80% are MSMEs, but also micro and small enterprises, but further 80% of these businesses are concentrated in Castries and Gros Islet, but only 13% in the South. Now the South is not Vieux-Fort. Vieux-Fort is only consists of 6.5, contributes to 6.5% of these businesses. And so it clearly shows that we need to have a lot more activity. We need some decentralization, some diversification of our business sector. So we have some work to do to spread the love around the country. All right?
So that is a very fundamental point. We'll take a break right now, but when we come back, we'll continue on the path that Barbara has set for us looking at this local consumption and how are we now retraining our taste buds due to COVID-19. We'll be back in a moment.
What's in the food you're eating? Do you really even know? All the chemicals and hormones used to accelerate their growth. All the artificial flavoring, sweeteners and colors too. We consume and we don't spare a thought for the damage that they'll do. No, think about the children. Think about the children. How will we save them? Chemicals and GMOs are not the solution. Use organic and join.
Excessive agrochemical use, additives, and genetically modified foods are harmful to health and the environment. Join the good food revolution. Grow, buy, and consume organic. A message from Rise St. Lucia and the Ministry of Sustainable Development with funding from the GEF Small Grants Program, UNDP.
The good food revolution.
Welcome back to our conversation here. It's COVID-19, the roadmap to recovery. We're looking at investment and business opportunities for St. Lucia. No, before we went to break, Barbara was discussing the whole idea of the local campaign. And we saw that earlier on in the year, Article 164, to an extent, really sort of, I said retooling the taste buds, but having to sort of retrain the mindset in being able to walk onto the supermarket, any goods, and really go for what is being produced locally and what is being produced regionally, because we've offered under Article 164 that these items will be now just a bit cheaper than the others or less expensive than the others. So, Margeurite, how do you think that we can now begin to take this a step further? Yes, we have Article 164 that's helping in that regard. COVID-19 has presented an opportunity now for us to really begin to show our people how the consumption of local goods and services really expands the economy.
Right. So what we've noticed in terms of historically, what certain big buyers here would have vendor buying agreements with international firms, and they would have certain commitments to buy. So that would kind of stifle the local manufacturers to some extent, because they would patronize us, but at a certain level. So what we've done, and with the support of the government also, what we've done is to meet with some of those buyers, and we are in the process of finding out, give me some projections. Let me know what is your overall. I mean, we have an idea. We have an idea of the population, the household population, etc. So for our products, in whichever industry we are, give me an idea of what the demand will be for over a quarter, a year, etc. Now with that demand, obviously we would have to increase our capacity. So if we need funding, we have the St. Lucia Development Bank, we have the support from SEDU and all the other agencies. We have Export St. Lucia, who's great at promoting our products for export readiness, etc. And with all of that support, we are hoping that when we come together, we will be able to supply the market. Because, I mean, historically, you would hear consistency. I get the product this month, but next month there's none, which is a local product. So we want that to be something of the past. And we want, but again, we need to prepare. We need the buyers to support us, and it is happening now. And we're very pleased for that. We welcome it, and we ourselves as manufacturers, we are going to be meeting to ensure that we supply the market on time and in full consistently with quality products that are at consistent standard. And we also going to be working with the Bureau of Standards along with our international standards to ensure that consistency in terms of the taste. You mentioned earlier the taste. Because a lot of our products taste, if not better than the international products. And patriotism, the money stays here. Unemployment, we saw last year, 2019, unemployment went down by, say, 17,000 persons. I think it went down from 20% to 16%, which is good, which is great for our economy. But with COVID-19, we never know. We don't even know what it will be in the next 6 months. So we have to present and create employment for our persons. And that starts with the support of all citizens, businesses, investors coming in. Help us to help the country.
Okay. Roderick, for Invest St. Lucia, there were 2 residential development projects that had been in the pipeline and moving full steam ahead, it would have seemed. So one in Margeurite, Dennery, and the other was in Beauchamp, Micoud. Are we still on track with these 2 development projects?
Yes, okay.
Give us some background into them as well.
Right, okay, Lisa, thank you. Last year, as one of our strategic initiatives at Invest St. Lucia, the decision was taken to give more St. Lucians the opportunity to own land in St. Lucia. And as a result of that, the land development projects became an initiative that we pursued. I would like to say that the Beauchamp development, which had in excess of 50 lots, is about 75% sold. So it's not about it being completed, so it's about right now we at sale. So it has continued.
Very good news,
yes,
in this dreary time.
Yes. Also in Margeurite, which had about 25 lots, this is about 60% sold, but committed to about 90%. So that has been happening. In addition to those 2 projects, we also had a land rationalization project, which really sought to put some order in unplanned development areas that lands that traditionally belong to the old NDC, now Invest St. Lucia. So we try to put order in that, and also to sell those lands to St. Lucians who had occupied the land at concessionary rates. And that is ongoing. We will start to sell perhaps in a month's time. We will be recording our first sales of those properties. So these have been happening very, and have been very successful, I must say. With COVID-19, there was a delay in a lot of the purchases, but now that the economy has been opened, we see people are coming back, because we have granted the extensions for the purchase because of the situation. And we have seen only one person say that they're not able to complete the purchase because of loss of job, loss of revenue, etc. But apart from that, that's going on quite fine. I wanted to just weigh in, Lisa, on the whole Viewfort business. And so, as you know, from the Invest St. Lucia has a lot of land through legacy issues in the south of the island. And at the launching of the Southern Business Community, was it Sabina, Southern Business Association? Yes, I made the point that the businesses in the south have to be ready for what is to come. Of course, it has been delayed a bit by COVID-19. However, when you look at the projects for the south, you look at the Pool of the Caribbean, that you look at the Hironura International Airport Redevelopment Project, which has broken ground. We also have one of our projects, project that we are facilitating, the Galaxy in Canals, where there are 2 hotels that are planned. That will be delayed, but still on stream as far as we know. And also the Ansdesab project, which is an Invest St. Lucia project. The Ansdesab project is really our star project, at Invest St. Lucia. And that project, from a policy level, we have decided that a certain percentage of the investors would have to be local for a number of years, and afterwards, if locals are unable to take advantage of that, then it would go out, to other investors.
Just pause a bit and tell us, why was that important?
Well, it was important because the area we went to the community in developing the master plan, And one of the things that came out quite clearly was the need for local people to be invested, to be part of that project. So we did two things towards that goal. We sized the plots of land smaller so that it would be a lower investment to actually own and operate a business in that location. And we've also decided that a certain portion, as yet undetermined percentage of the investors would have to be local. So locals would be given priority for the investment in that area. Okay. So in terms of the South, Sabina, there's quite a bit happening there. Our land development projects are in the South as well as the majority of the land rationalization projects. What we've also seen over the past few months, say perhaps 9 months, is because of the announcement and the starting of a lot of these projects, there have been lots of requests for land purchase and land leases of commercial land that is owned by Invest St. Lucia. So the South is on its way up.
And so what Roderick spoke about, you have to be prepared, ready for that launch. So how have the members been preparing, and what does it mean to be prepared?
Well, we were given the same warning at our launching of our association. And what we are hoping is going to happen, and we did indicate that to Mr. Cherry, is that at some point before things begin to actually take root, that we would have another opportunity to sit with Invest St. Lucia as an association, so our members would have that opportunity to dialogue with Invest St. Lucia to find out exactly how it is they would be able to capitalize on what it is that was coming for the South. And that is one of the fundamental reasons, Lisa, why we're insisting on ensuring that the Southern Business Association is present at the table. Because for too long, businesses in the South have not had a voice, have not had their presence at the table where the decisions are being made. And so I'm very pleased tonight that Mr. Cherry is reiterating and recommitting to that promise which he made to us at our launching in November of 2019. So, Mr. Cherry, we're looking forward to engaging Invest St. Lucia very soon, so that we would be in a position to be able to take advantage of what's coming.
Now, Roderick, you've been warned.
Yes.
No problem at all.
But I was interested in finding out, for what are the areas of investment would the South benefit from most? That your businesses and the people will be able to benefit from most?
Okay, well, traditionally, Lisa, we know that the airport has played a very big role in economic activity in the South. We have a lot of small businesses across the length and breadth of the South that depend on the airport. We have car rental companies, we have taxi drivers, we have, not only the car rental companies that operate inside of the airport, but we have private individuals who provide those services to the tourists and to even locals when they come on island. So the redevelopment of HIA is a big one for us. So that is one of them that we are looking at very closely. Basically, those kinds of investments is what it is the South needs right now, because the spill-offs from those investments, when you have more people employed, you have more people engaging in buying from your small businesses. So the spill-offs from those projects will impact our small businesses in a very positive way. We are also very, very concerned about what our town looks like. And that's one of the issues, one of the pet peeves for me, and I know for a lot of people, what our town looks like, what the community looks like. And we are looking forward to seeing improvement in the landscape, in the physical landscape, not just from an economic standpoint, but in the physical landscape, that when you come to Vieux Fort and you drive into Vieux Fort, you will feel as if you're in a coastal town, because we're a coastal town. We have, that beautiful stretch of beach when you're driving, along that road into the town. And we want to see improvements in those areas.
All right, well said there. Margeurite, talk about improvements for the manufacturing sector. The opportunity, is there any at all for us to be able to see more partnerships happening with manufacturing at this time, linkages at this time?
Well, I see a lot of opportunities for Down South. I don't hear you mentioning Down South, but a lot of our big manufacturers are actually based down south.
Yep.
And they've been doing very well. We have the brewery, we have Baron Foods, we have Winera, we have Gordon Catering, we have Toiling, we have Chemical. So we have a lot of the bulk of our manufacturers are really based down south. And when I talk about down south, I also see an opportunity for us to move it to east and west, meaning like the Dennery area, the Meekwood area. We look at, ancillary canneries, because these are places where I'm sure in St. Lucia or we have Crown Lands where we can put up a few warehouses and start up a new business. I mean, there are lots of opportunity. We have a lot of great opportunities to attract businesses and investment. We have the Corporate Headquarters Act, which you would have seen a lot of companies took advantage over that to move over to St. Lucia. I think Digicel was one of the last one. So I mean, this is a global opportunity for companies like, Louis Vuitton to decide to bring their corporate headquarters. I'm thinking big, but I'm thinking big, but you never know.
Not impossible, absolutely
you never know.
not.
Rihanna can say, well, you know what, let me bring in my production to St. Lucia with what's happening in China, the global war between China and the US. Let me bring my
move hard.
Exactly. So we have
line hair.
Exactly, a makeup line hair. And then we will have a lot more employment, a lot more foreign exchange opportunities, etc. So don't forget manufacturing should be even more focused down south, because it will create a lot of employment and it contributes a lot to our GDP. For the past couple of years, manufacturing has been contributing like 8.6% to the total value of real GDP. So this is great, and overall a 3.2 or 3 point something percent to GDP. So again, that is great for us, not just as manufacturers, not just as business owners, but as a country.
Lisa, if I may just butt in to follow with what Margeurite has just alluded to. When it comes to manufacturing, what we see in our association is we have quite a few of our members who are into agro-processing, where they make jams and jellies and stuff like that. And one of the discussions that we have had is if there would be access to a space, and in that discussion, Invest St. Lucia came up, that if there would be access to a space where our small agro-processors could set up their stainless steel tables with the HACCP certification, so that they would not have to necessarily go into financing of setting up the agro-processing. That is one of the areas that we have been looking at, and that I think would add tremendous value to the southern landscape if that was something that Invest St. Lucia would be able to do, because then you would have small agro-processors going in on a daily basis with their staff, almost like a business incubator kind of vibe, but where they're actually processing those things to put them out in the market, and they would have access to facilities for their accounting and for customer relations and for marketing of their products. So I think that is one of the areas. We have been discussing it, but it's one of the areas that I think where Invest St. Lucia can make a very big difference for small agro-processors in the South.
You'd agree to that, Roger?
Oh, definitely. Yes. As I said earlier on, that we had initiated the incubator project, which should have been launched earlier this year, but for obvious reasons, we were not able to. As I said, the initial concept was the provision of a facility to do this very same thing, where we would have a number, instead of one big tenant, but a number of smaller tenants, and really have the incubator as a facility. But that has been deferred, given the present, financial situation that faces us. And so our first step in terms of the incubator project will be a virtual incubator, And as I said, we have reconvened, and we will hopefully be relaunching the virtual incubator very soon. But of course, the physical space is very important, particularly in areas with agro-processing, which is really one of the areas that we see as a growth area, given what COVID has taught us, you know.
Absolutely. Yes,
Lisa, I also see an opportunity for a lot more free zone operations. I see Jamaica trying to capitalize on that. And if St. Lucia could improve and increase on its free zone capacity, I see it could contribute very positive towards unemployment and reducing it even further.
So the free zone that we had, what is the status of that, Roderick or
the free zone is almost 100% capacity right now. We own a couple of factory shells within there, and they all taken up. The last of which will be rented, is committed, you know, and the other facilities owned by the free zone management company, 100% capacity. So definitely it is something that we need to look at. You know, as part of our long-term plan that we presented to the board at Invest St. Lucia, we have identified an area that we think would be ideal for that, but it is more long-term. Perhaps we need to take it out from long-term and bring it into short-term, medium-term. But that is definitely one of the plans that we have, you know, on the drawing board.
For production for manufacturers, Margeurite, we know, looking at the social and economic review, the figures elude me, but certainly there was an increase there where production is concerned. Now with COVID, do you believe that we'll be able to maintain those production levels across all of the subsectors for manufacturing, given, let's take into account the way that now we have to do a social distancing or physical distancing in the work environment?
Okay, so for our essential services like the food and the hygiene sector, definitely we'll see a growth in that area. We've already seen it because the demand keeps increasing. For some of the other sectors, we may see a slight decline. However, with the implementation of Article 164, which came into effect January of this year, some of our manufacturers who benefited from Article 164, they will be protected not just in St. Lucia but the entire less developed countries, so they would be able to export more. So even if we don't have the demand locally, the entire demand that we would expect normally, we would expect to try to sell our way, like I said, through the crisis and push our product out. And we already seeing it, it's happening already. We already seen the demand for our products in places like St. Vincent and Grenada, places we were not even selling before. So we are actually gaining market share and expanding our capacity across the region. So there will be, it wouldn't be business as usual for some manufacturers. That's the reality. But then we need to find creative ways to be able to energize ourselves, energize the business, or redirect with all the protocols in terms of refocus what we do, and also perhaps manufacture more things. We are already into the process and we know what it is to manufacture. So all we need probably is to get new machinery, new capital, and the rest is, will be history.
What do you think the government would have to do now to be able to assist the manufacturing sector?
Well, I would share with what the government has started doing. Because what the government started doing, the Ministry of Commerce has been such a great support for us. And first thing they did, they got feedback from us in terms of the different manufacturers, how we were affected. And we shared that with them. They facilitated meetings with the buyers for us in terms of trying to get our products out there. And the big buy local campaign, which Barbara tried to sell out a little, but she didn't give out the secret. No. So the buy local campaign, again, will be supporting local. And I must say, in 2008, there was a cabinet conclusion that was signed. And that cabinet conclusion basically states that government agencies need to procure locally, as long as we have the products locally. You go outside of that if we do not have the product. So that again, that solidifies the support from government. And that cabinet conclusion, I know the government have been pushing and supporting. Recently the Prime Minister met with us in terms of driving the Buy Local campaign, and he went as far as meeting and speaking to all the international chairpersons and the headquarters of the big buyers here to ensure that we got heard in terms of the support to project more, to be able to sell more, so we can prepare to expand in the market. So for us, we see it as an opportunity to expand our business. And for the others, again, the stabilization support, we will capitalize on that to start to help our business go through the crisis, and as soon as the market gets back in terms of its normality, then we will capitalize on whatever growth there is to capitalize on. So we're very optimistic despite the challenges.
Can you permit me to add some
course,
more
Go
that
ahead.
the Ministry of Commerce is doing to help the cause? We are currently putting together a request seeking permission or approval from Cabinet to allow our minister the powers to approve a certain level of inputs in terms of for those applying for fiscal incentives. So for a set period of time and for a maximum dollar amount or dollar value of inputs, we will be trying to get that approved for our minister, so that we don't have to go through the process of the drawn out process of applying to Cabinet for the usual format. Okay, so it will be done more speedily, and then the businesses can get that whatever it is that they are requesting they need to import, get that done as quickly as possible, because time is of the essence. We do not want the opportunities to be lost. All right, so that is a good one. I wanted to add also, when it comes to, because we are saying that under COVID we expect a lot of businesses to fail.
Yeah.
All right. Now the thing is that if you go into COVID weak, you will come out weaker or dead. That's it. But those who already have certain structures in place, they will be able to make it through. That's one thing. Now, when it comes to micro and small enterprises, they're a group that never say die.
Right.
They may go out,
Constantly
but
trying
they
to
come in
innovate.
another form.
Yes, yes.
All right? I might go out as a sole trader, I come back with a partner. That's it. All right? But what we've seen, because a key service that we provide is with business name registration and incorporation. That is subsidized by the government. And the whole aim is to help our businesses formalize, shrink, get rid of the informal economy. All right? And that's for a number of reasons that would benefit both the business owner and the country. All right? What we have seen since the country, the economy reopened, is we've gotten an influx of requests for assistance to formalize those businesses, both from those who have existing businesses and new ones, a lot.
So it's really able to poll as to why that is?
It has been too soon for us, because we were also trying to adjust to, set up new structures and everything at the same time. But we have observed is a lot of them. We've seen food even for events. All right. So yes, the businesses during COVID, we said, well, during COVID, it looked like people had a lot of time to think, So, I'm very hopeful for the country, despite what we're going through. Okay. And we have some other, we have a lot of virtual webinars that will be unrolling, some with OAS again. For example, in the week after, next week actually, they'll be having social media, two days of social media. How the businesses can leverage that right now, to boost their performance, their competitiveness. We are also working with another partner, the German Savings Bank for International Cooperation, acronym SBFIC, and we'll be looking at record keeping, because we realize that's still a key. I mean, no matter how many years we've been working with the sector, the businesses, this still remains
one of the biggest challenges.
The biggest challenge, yes. A lot of people don't have not developed that discipline, no matter how hard we have tried. Another one is with design thinking for both beginners, meaning persons that are looking to start a business, as well as startups. What do you mean by design thinking? It's getting them to understand and practice what are the different steps that you put in place. You must consider what you must consider when you want to start a business. It's not like you just wake up during the night and say, oh, that's going to work. Or because Lisa is doing something and she seems successful, that's going to work for me. And we do that a lot, all right? But and at the end of the day, we realize that we have invested our funds, or maybe our family and friends' funds, and that has gone down the drain. So with the design thinking, it will really help us focus on what the end user or the customer is looking for. And so we now, having considered that, will be more viable and more creative and innovative in what we present. And it will be more readily accepted because we considered who? The one that is, who has to purchase it or use it.
So we are due for another break. When we come back, Margaret, I haven't forgotten you. I know that you had a point to make. We'll be coming straight to you after the break. Welcome back to our discussion in studio. We're looking at COVID-19, St. Lucia's roadmap to recovery, investment, and business opportunities. Margaret, before the break, you will chime in.
Yes, I am so pleased to find out that the ministry, like you said, Barbara, is trying to ease to ease on doing business for us. I mean, I know we've been improving in that regard, but to be able to have a certain level to authorize concessions, especially with the high demand. I noticed you said about a demand in terms of more people coming to open businesses and requests. That's because, again, people trying to innovate and they're trying to be creative. Right. So with that, with what the government is doing in terms of trying to expedite the process, which would probably normally take a couple of months, I think that it will be very complementary. And I also see a platform for us to diversify. So perhaps, you know, even if we are already manufacturing or in certain business, it's also an opportunity to diversify. Not just to diversify in terms of what we produce, but also to look at e-commerce. Now, e-commerce don't necessarily have to be that you have to have this expensive infrastructure, IT infrastructure. We can simply do e-commerce through Amazon, and it will work. So I don't want our manufacturers to think that we must have this expensive platform. Amazon and other platforms out there can facilitate our products with e-commerce. We just have to have the leap of faith and do it, like all other companies around the world have been doing.
Yeah. Let's say, if I may, going back to Margeurite and Barbara's point about so many people coming in to open new businesses. What this tells us about us as a people is that we have the entrepreneurial spirit that is required for us to ensure our survival. And it tells us that during this very anxious time that we are going through, that people are constantly thinking about how they're going to preserve their livelihoods, how they're going to take care of the children, how they're going to make sure that there's income to eat, even if they're not thinking too much about paying the bills, but that they can eat and that they can keep a roof over their children's heads. And so one of the things that I'm very pleased to note is that the SBDC has done a fantastic job in being an agency that supports that kind of business development. And so we are looking forward to seeing continued support from the government, continued support from the agencies of government, knowing that they have the understanding, because whereas before COVID, maybe things would have been a little beyond people's reach as far as understanding a situation that someone has found themselves in. But with COVID touching every single one of us, it makes us a little more alert and more our brother's keepers and more, looking really deeply into what it is someone is presenting and trying to understand how it is we can help and how it is we can help them move themselves forward. Because at the end of the day, for all of us as a country, it's about helping each other so that we can get out of this crisis stronger than we entered. So I just wanted to add to Margeurite and Barbara's point.
So we're looking at some of those factors now for business. One of the things that has been a sort of really one of those peeves has to do with the high cost of energy here on Ireland. I know for the manufacturing sector, that's something that certainly you have to contend with. So what are your members saying to that specific factor there of the high cost of energy and how that is impacting how they're able to continue to operate?
Well, luckily for the past month, or I would say most part of last year, the energy costs had gone down. So we were seeing some benefits, probably the whole of last year in terms of energy costs. And I'm hoping, and I know our Minister for Commerce has informed us that the government is working very closely with Lucia and WASCO, well, not just energy, but also for all utilities in terms of getting some, concessionary rate to support, in terms of some of the incentives for manufacturing. So again, some of the other things would be the solar. Lucia would have invested in the solar farm in Viewfort, and there may be other opportunities from what I'm hearing in terms of more solar opportunities. And again, we are hoping with the oil prices, taking a dip, that we will see more benefit in terms of that savings. And a lot of times, I must say, when we get those savings, either we pass it on to the consumers or we reinvest it in the business to improve more on the quality of products and services and consistency. So it also has a domino effect in terms of what we do in the market. So we always welcome, and we'll continue to work with the government and accept the support in terms of that area.
At this juncture, let me tell you that we are welcoming your participation. You can call in with your question or comment. That number is 468-2162. That's 468-2162. And as always, if you have a question and you're on the Facebook platform, you can post that question there, and I'll be happy to pose it to the panelists. Roger, we're talking about the ease of doing business earlier on. We alluded to it, glossed over it. Let's get back to that, because that is a very important aspect of being able to draw investment. That World Bank report is a sort of Bible that investors look to, if you will. So for us, what would we need to do better moving forward?
Okay, Lisa, ease of doing business. This is one of the factors that investors look at in making their investment decision. And so the ranking is very important. But more importantly is what really happens, you know. How easy is it for you to do basic administrative stuff, basic registration, etc. And this has been one of the biggest issues that we at Invest in Lucia have faced. Fortunately, I must say that it has been getting better. You know, it has been getting better from the standpoint that we know the
the challenges
yeah, we know the
are.
processes, we know the challenges, and of course we plan for that.
But just hold on to that thought and hold on before.
Yeah.
Just hold on. Don't forget the points. But let's say good evening to the caller. Thank you so much for calling in. And what's your question or your comment?
Hi, good evening to the panel. I am particularly interested in the Southern Business Association. I have not heard about it before, but I think it's a really, really good idea. And I would want to know how it was started, who started it up, who are the people involved, and how does one get to be a member?
And you are a businessman yourself?
Yes, I am.
Very well. Ms. Valmont?
Okay, thank you, caller. For
Is
your
that the
question.
extent of your question? Okay, we lost the caller?
Yes,
All right.
Thank you, caller, for your question. Back in, I think it was 2016 or 2017, there was a CARI-led project which again was looking at the ease of doing business among the local community. And the Southern Business Association came about as a result of a recommendation that for the South, that is one of the things that the project found, that there needed to be a business association that would do the job of bringing together the needs of businesses to be able to advocate for businesses on the national stage. And it's a little funny how I ended up in the chair. I attended one of the sessions where there was a launching of the Business Help Desk at the Beaufort South Constituency Council. And I chaired that meeting. And on that same day, one of the things that needed to be done was that they needed to get together a steering committee to look at how that recommendation could become a reality. And at that meeting, the members, the business owners at that session, selected a group of 9 of us to sit on that steering committee. And in that group of 9, my colleagues decided that, that I should be the chairperson of that steering committee. And so I guess doing the work that needed to be done to get the association formalized, get it off the ground, get it registered, working with the SLCSI, who provided some of the funding for the registration, working with the SBDC, just pushing my nose everywhere that it needed to be pushed, making phone calls, calling Barbara, calling the SBDC, trying to find out what it is that needed to be done and how it is that southern businesses could find themselves at the table where those decisions are being made. And so we got ourselves to the point where last year in November, we were able to host our first AGM as an association. And at that session, I was voted in as the president of the Southern Business Association. So we have a board of directors that looks after the affairs of the association. But what has happened now is that COVID has kind of, changed our plans around. But I'll tell you, it is, we look at it as a beautiful opportunity because being a new association, we had not invested too much in structures and processes. So we now have the opportunity to move forward in the digital space. So the goal is that the Southern Business Association is going to, provide services for its members, mostly from a digital standpoint. So we are now at the point where we are crafting how it is we move forward as an association. And now more than ever, it is so important because what we are seeing on the ground is that small businesses, medium businesses, micro businesses need a voice now more than ever. And so that is the story of the Southern Business Association.
And thank you so much for that. Roderick, we're getting back to you where we were looking at the ease of doing business, and you were making the point about we know what needs to be done.
Yes. The point I wanted to make is that given the increased competition for global FDI, foreign direct investment, it is now even more important that when we have promoted and attracted and actually have investors ready to invest in our country so that we could expand our economy, that the processes for setting up the business and operationalizing the business is as smooth as possible. You know, and that is the point. I think this is a thing. It is something that we have to look at from the standpoint of, you know, what they call a whole of government approach. It's something that has been talked about for a number of years, but it has not been implemented in the most efficient manner possible. And now this is even more important for us.
Yes, yes, it is.
So if you don't have another call, if I may, I think there was a part of the caller's question that I neglected to answer.
About becoming a member.
How do you become a member of the Southern Business Association? So what has happened is that we have very generous members in the Southern Business Association. And one of our members, LMP Services, who is also a founding member, was very generous in providing a space within her office where we have a desk. And so we're located on Clark Lane in Viewfort. It's right opposite St. Anthony's Medical Center. And at that office, we have a desk where members can register for now physically. So you can go there and you would have access to a registration form and be able to register with the Southern Business Association. Registration costs only $150, and we accept registration from businesses starting as far as Dennery all the way to Soufrière. And our membership spans that geographic location as well.
All right, wonderful there. Certainly for the small businesses, the investments, and the manufacturers, financing is one of the things now that's becoming, you know, almost that golden spoon there, because, you know, we're seeing that although banks may be liquid, but there may be some sort of apprehension there in terms of qualifying the loans and so forth. So for the Manufacturers Association, Margeurite, for its members, seeing the new opportunities are there, but financing those new opportunities now may become a bit of a headache. Would you agree, and how would you be able to mitigate?
Well, if you look at it generally, I would not look at it as a headache. I would look at it as, if I were a banker, an opportunity where I see there is growth in a sector. For me, in a total global economy where you could see a crisis, you know, the last crisis was in 2008, so the financial crisis. So I would see this as an opportunity to go into the niche to go into these sectors where there will be demand. One thing people would always do is eat. The other thing too, health. People's health is their wealth. So if you could manufacture things in those areas, for sure, you have business continuity. So if I was a banker, that's the angle I would look at it. I mean, a lot of our manufacturers, like I said, one thing that the government did for us, which was very favorable, is the VAT, paying the VAT at the point of sale rather than at the port. Because before 2018, like 2 years ago, prior to that, when VAT was implemented, we were paying VAT at the port. So what used to happen to us, because of economies of scale, some of us didn't have the capacity to do bulk purchase of raw material, because the VAT would increase obviously based on the amount. But now that that was removed, the Prime Minister at the first meeting with us, that was one of the great things he did for us. We're very grateful for. He removed the VAT at the point of the pot and put it at the point of sale. And cash flow is king. That's your reality. So that has now enabled us with the increased demand to be able to buy more bulk. So increase your working capital, buy more bulk, and you pay the VAT at the point of sale. So when we buy more bulk, that means we get bulk discount, economies of scale, and it's beneficial to us, and it has a domino effect on the consumers. So we're very grateful for that.
Let's go to the phone lines. Thank you so much for calling in. What's your question, your comment?
Hi, good night. My question is to Ms. Sabina. She mentioned the 150 fee to register with the association. I'm just wondering what the fees are, whether there's a monthly fee after you pay the 150 or a yearly fee. I would love to hear from her what that fee is, if there isn't a fee.
The fee, the 150 that's being paid.
So the fee is is a fee that you pay once a year as a member of the Southern Business Association. So that fee, after you've paid that, it gives you access to whatever services that the association would provide. So it's not a thing. It's not money that you're paying us every month. It is what you're paying to join the association, and thereafter, to remain a member of the association, you would pay that fee once a year.
And the makeup of your businesses, you can give us an idea as to what those are?
Okay, so we have a variety of businesses that are members of the Southern Business Association. We have car rental owners, we have real estate agents, we have property managers, we have insurance agents, we have a TV station, we have agro-processors, we have, Lisa, it's very, we have a bookstore, we have contractors, you name it, I think we have a member in the Southern Business Association. So we don't discriminate. Once you're operating from Dennery to Soufrière, you can join the business association. We have no, stringent requirements and, in
order for you to be a member.
In order for you to be
How
a member.
does it coexist with the Chamber of Commerce? What is your interfacing with the Chamber of Commerce, if there's any at all?
Okay, so what has happened in the past is that the Chamber has reached out to us on some occasions when they have had sessions in the South, because like Margeurite said a while ago, a lot of the big manufacturers who would be members of the Chamber and the bigger businesses who have a storefront in Castries also would have their businesses operating in the South. And so we have collaborated with the Chamber on some initiatives.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Thank you so much for calling in. What's your question or your comment?
Yes,
hello.
This is for the small business owner, the Small Business Association. What are the benefits that you get when you join the association?
Okay, so thank you so much, caller. One of the benefits is that I'm sitting here this evening, and I'm being a voice for small business in the South. I think there's an echo.
Yes,
no? Okay.
Not on your end.
Okay. One of the things that we saw prior to the Southern Business Association being around is that a lot of the times things would be happening in the north of the island. There would be a training session, there would be grant funding available, all sorts of wonderful things would be happening on island. And for some reason, business owners in the South would tell you, I just saw this in the news last night. I had no idea that this was happening. But with the Southern Business Association being around, we now have links with the various agencies of government that provide services, support services to businesses. And we are kind of like that intermediary where we make the connection between those business support agencies and our small businesses.
All right, so we do hope that by the interest, the public interest, that you will be receiving more members. And
I hope so. I hope so.
I do hope that's the thing. But we were talking about the financing, and I was going to ask you, Barbara, part of your services, what you do for the micro, small, medium enterprises, is help them with that sort of accessing, being able to access financing, give them the wherewithal for them to be able to do that. How do you see now, in terms of now we're going through the COVID, what are some of the steps you will have to add or sort of retool in order for you to be able to assist your clients?
Okay, I'm happy we're on that subject of financing. In terms of the clients, as I mentioned earlier, that on the results of the survey, the respondents said that they needed help with proposals for either to either get grants or loans, with business planning, strategic planning. Okay, so these services we already provide and will continue. But what we do also, when persons come to us, we do an assessment. So it wouldn't be just that you come to us and you say, I need finance. We will assess and see, is that your primary need? Okay, what else do you have to put in place to ensure that when you get that finance, it works for you, it helps you meet your objectives. All right, so we work with the whole entrepreneur, not just what they say they need. We do a deeper investigation into, what really would help that client be successful. All right, but in terms of financing opportunities, coming on board, hopefully next month, is the Eastern Caribbean Partial Credit Guarantee Fund. This is a pool of about $12 million that's available to the OECS countries, each one receiving about $2 US million. And that would be done through the financial institutions and other lending agencies to help businesses that have a track record, probably about 2 years into profit or non-profit, maximum of $300,000 that they would be able to access, but only 75% secured. Okay, so that is an avenue for our businesses to access critical funds. Another one the government supported recently is through the post-Cotonou agreement, is about 6 million euros, but that will be administered through the St. Lucia Development Bank. Okay, so and we remain hopeful that other sources will become available to our businesses. We encourage them also to form strategic alliances, because sometimes it may not be that you need to approach a bank. You may have another business partner who has the capital that you can access, and so on. All right? So these are some of what they can
and what it seems to come on stream seems very hopeful. And we have a question coming in from our Ask Me Anything NTN platform for the Southern Business Association. Small businesses continually complain about access to financing. Financial institutions, on the other hand, advise that small businesses, especially sole traders who have been operating for a few years, that they need to have financials to allow them to adequately assess their financial performance to allow them to qualify for financing. What systems can the association put in place to help their members prepare adequately to access financing?
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you, caller. So like I said previously, what we have been doing since this whole COVID crisis has descended upon us is we have been examining exactly what it is our plans had been pre-COVID and looking at some of the things that we will need to be able to do as an association post-COVID. And one of the things we know is that there exists within the business support agencies of government, support for helping small business put those kinds of arrangements in place. Because anytime you talk about accessing finance, you get asked, let me see your financials, what kind of money is your business making, how long have you been in business, what kind of profit have you been making. And we want to ensure that sole traders, not only sole traders, but that members of our association who are not yet doing so get into the habit, one of the most important habits, which is record keeping. And that is one of the things that, one of the programs that we are going to be setting out as soon as we get ourselves to the point where we have decided exactly what the program is going to be for the Southern Business Association. Because as of now, a lot of the plans that we had, the committees that we had already put in place, that had already begun working on the services that they were going to provide to members, we have to now reconsider what it is we need to do in order to ensure that what we are providing is relevant in the context of COVID and that it is going to be something that's beneficial to our members and to small businesses, even if they're not members, but those that we are encouraging to join the membership of the SBA, or that we are encouraging to register their businesses by using the services available at SEDU.
I'm so happy that there's a lot of interest in the Small Business Association.
Yes, we're happy too.
Southern. Yeah. So it means that definitely that the South is ready, Roderick. They've heeded your call, huh? They are very much ready for them to be able to participate.
Yeah, and the mere fact that we have the SBA on the scene, it means that we will be able to take advantage of what's coming. We now have a collaborated effort. It's not everybody trying to do their own thing.
Yes, and I'm happy about that. I'm really happy. So in our remaining moments, I'm going to give each of you just between 30 seconds to just 40 for 50 seconds there to give us your closing thoughts. We'll go to you first, Barbara.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, that the MSME sector is very resilient. Well, I alluded to that, a very resilient group. And there's, through the Ministry of Commerce and our unit, there's a wide range of services that they can access to ensure that they meet their business goals. And we can see that through the interest that they've already generated, having the economy reopened, that they are ready, and we do have, as Sabina mentioned, an entrepreneurial spirit already in place in St. Lucia. We just have to harness it.
Thank you so much for that. So we'll come back to you, Lance, since you had a big go a while ago. Margeurite, we'll come over to you.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to express our appreciation from the Manufacturers Association for the whole management of the COVID in St. Lucia. I think that was a tremendous job. As you could see, we were one of the 3 countries worldwide that did the best. I really appreciate that. And our job right now is for us as leaders to communicate some of the great opportunities and benefits there are for manufacturers, both locally and for investors coming in. Thank you.
All right, Roderick.
Oh, thank you, Lisa, and thanks for inviting me here and the ladies that I'm surrounded with.
Yes, I know, bevy of beauties, right?
That's right. Yes. I think my closing comments is that what COVID has taught us lots of things, a lot of them negative, but what we've seen in terms of the resilience of our people, the management even of the pandemic itself within St. Lucia, and the fact that businesses have taken a beating and businesses are trying to come out of this even stronger. What I'd like to see for the future, though, is that in a post-COVID environment, that we do not forget this innovation that we had, this entrepreneurial spirit, the spirit of survival. Basically, I would like that businesses do not get complacent. post-COVID, when we're back to whatever that new normal is, you know, and that's my final comment. Thanks.
Over to you, Sabina.
Thank you, Lisa. So first of all, let me just say how pleased I am to have been part of this discussion. And I think we are very pleased with the level of visibility that the Southern Business Association has gained as a result of me being here this evening. So I would like to close the loop for our viewers and businesses in the South who would be interested in joining the association, and take this opportunity to provide them with a contact number, which they can use to reach us if they're interested in joining. And the number for the office is 454-8757. If they would like a cell phone contact, mine is 729-1551. So those two numbers should be good enough to ensure that anybody who's trying to reach the SBA would be able to reach us. And once again, thank you so much for having me.
It has been my absolute pleasure having you here, because tonight's conversation serves to show that we are not going to allow COVID to kill the spirit in St. Lucia. Absolutely not. We're not just laying down and playing dead. And I mean, on a cursory glance, you believe that COVID is all doom and gloom, but this discussion showed that certainly that we do have the wherewithal to be able to climb out of that dark hole that COVID has created the world over. So let me say thank you very much to Mr. Roderick Sherry, who is the Chief Executive Officer for Invest St. Lucia, as Margeurite Daisy, the President of the St. Lucia Manufacturers Association, Sabina Valmont, for the founding President of the Southern Business Association, and Barbara Innocent Charles. Thank you so much. She's the Director of the Small Business Development Center. As I said, you know it best as SADO. I am Lisa Joseph, thanking you so much for your participation, and we'll see you next time on COVID-19, the Roadmap to Recovery.